Maintaining our sublimation printers is key when it comes to prolonging our printer life. Oftentimes, it's overlooked because it's a bit overwhelming and nobody really knows where to start. So, I would love to share with you all 7 steps that you would ever possibly need. That way, you know exactly when and how you should be utilizing each and every maintenance tip. Plus, I will cover the frequency and things that shouldn't even be used that are oftentimes used instead. You and I have just become best friends. I am your sublimation coach. My name is Kaylee, and I would love for you to stay subscribed, save this video so that you can come back time and time again. Plus, there is a free digital download included in this video. That way, you know exactly what maintenance tip you should be using, how it should be ran, and when it should be used. Before we dive into the key points, I need to cover a basic overview. Today, I will be utilizing an Epson 2720 ET. And believe it or not, this is a 5-year-old printer and I am squeezing the life out of her. And she still has quite a bit of life left in her, if I do say so myself. If you're questioning what exactly is ET, that stands for EcoTank. And this maintenance tutorial should cover all Epson EcoTank printers. With that being said, let's talk about the 7 different types of maintenance that we are going to be covering today. These are the 7 maintenance tips that we will be covering today. Some very basic, others a bit more complex, but I will be sure to simplify every step for you. With that being said, some of these are only weekly maintenance and others are only as needed. So make sure that you check on screen for that little box that'll let you know how often. And just because I know some of our memories are not the best, mine included, I have included a digital checklist that is included for free with your digital download. That way you can stay as organized as possible. Believe me, I know it helps. The first and most basic thing is just doing a general wipe down of your actual machine. We want this thing to stay gorgeous and pretty and beautiful. And sometimes ink gets splattered on it, or who knows, you laid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich down. So let's just run this over and I'll show you exactly what I use. I know this step is very self-explanatory, but let's just run over it real quick. I do recommend at least once a week wiping down your entire machine. It's going to remove any dirt and debris, which can get caught into our ink nozzles, and we will talk about that a little bit later. I'm just going to use some disinfectant wipes that are hanging around my office. In the past, I have used rubbing alcohol as well as Windex. Just make your better judgment here. The only thing I will say is be a bit cautious, of course, around the buttons and the electronics. Throughout this tutorial, you will continue to hear that dust and debris is not your friend when it comes to your printer. So I do recommend wiping down around your fill tanks, but I will say be extra cautious that none of the cleaner actually gets into the lines because of course that will cause a little bit of issues when it comes to printing. But for whatever reason, this little trap door here does collect a lot of dust, so just beware. Okay, so one last thing to do before we get into the actual maintenance process. Remove your sublimation paper from the printer. We do not want to waste any of this paper. Of course, it is not as inexpensive as regular copy paper. So I grabbed 4 to 5 different pieces of copy paper from my original printer and bring them over for any maintenance tips. Your printer should both be connected to the Wi-Fi as well as your computer, and then from here, you need to find the maintenance tab. Usually it is the left or right arrows, and you will find a little gear. That first screen is your maintenance. You will click that once, and here it's going to show you 1 through 6, all of the maintenance options. Now in the beginning, I said that there was 7, but basically this wipe down was number 1. Number 1 is your nozzle check, which is probably your most important task. This is something that may be ran more than once a week. However, I definitely recommend throwing it into that weekly maintenance. This ensures that there is no dirt, dust, or debris in those nozzles and that everything is running smoothly. Here are a few reasons that you may need to run a nozzle check aside from just your routine maintenance. So let me show you exactly how this is completed and why it should be done. For each step, we will be reverting back to the original maintenance tab, and number 1 is your nozzle check. Select nozzle check and then select print. I will say in some of your printers, it is going to prompt you that the paper is not correct for your actual print. This is okay, and I do not recommend changing this because this should be set for your sublimation paper. If this happens to you, just acknowledge this by selecting OK twice, and it will prompt your printer to begin the process. Now this is going to spit out a page with a bunch of information on it, and I promise we'll break it down together. The bottom section is just all of the information about your printer, but this top section is very important. As you can see, it prints out a bunch of little lines, and any lines that are broken indicates that there is a clog or debris trapped within those lines, and that is what we are trying to avoid with the printer maintenance. So looking at it closely, I can tell that we have a little bit of an issue with the blue and a little bit of an issue with the black. On screen, it will ask you if any segments are missing. We are going to select yes because both blue and black are having a little bit of an issue. At the tail end of that, you've seen your head cleaning. This coincides with your nozzle check, and if anything is wrong in your nozzle check, it's going to bump you right over to a head cleaning. Basically, this forces ink through those lines to pass through any air, dirt, debris, or dried ink. It's also a step that can be done 2, 3, even 4 or 5 times to completely smooth out those lines. So let me show you exactly how that can be done in the next step in case that doesn't work. Once you indicate that there are some segments missing, it will automatically prompt you to begin a head cleaning. Now this takes about 3 to 5 minutes, so just be a bit patient. Your printer is going to make some weird noises, and that's totally fine, don't worry. What it's doing is flushing ink through your lines to remove any clogs, dirt, or debris. Of course, I do recommend to do this at least once a week, but some people do this before every single project. It just truly makes sure that you are printing at the highest quality and nothing is getting clogged or stuck behind. Once this is complete, I do recommend going back and doing another nozzle check. And as you will see here, this is not going to come out in the exact way that we had hoped. Sometimes it comes out perfectly and you only needed to do this once, and then other times it's going to actually show you that there is a bit more of a problem behind the scenes. If you find that this does not clear out your lines and make everything smooth, run this head process a couple different times. I would say up to 5 different times, but if you hit number 5 and it still is clogged, then we may have to take an additional step. Let's see where this leads. So at this point, I've gone through about 4 head cleanings and that clog in the black toner is not going to budge. Don't worry, this is not something that happens often, only if you leave your printer inactive for quite a while. I recommend printing at least once a week. And if you don't print once a day, that is okay. I really think that's just a myth that sublimation creators tell each other to kind of scare people from starting the journey. It looks like we have a bit of a problem on our hand. After running the head cleaning 3 and 4 times, it is not clearly consistent with what we need. At this point, that means that there is a pretty severe clog. And just for this video, I allowed my sublimation printer to sit for about 3 to 4 weeks, which is not ideal. And this is what happens. You get a pretty severe clog in your lines. Now there is a way to fix this, and it is called a power clean. But a power clean is very hard on your printer, and over time, it will shorten the lifespan of your printer. So this is only something that should be used in very extreme cases. Here are some reasons that it may need to be used, and I'm going to walk you through that entire step-by-step process, but please know this is only something that should be done as needed and never just for fun or because you've given up on 1 or 2 tries. Before we even think about moving forward with the power clean, we need to take a look at our ink tanks. Ensure that they are over 1/4 full. If not, you're going to cause yourself an entirely new set of problems. In the maintenance screen, there is a button for a power clean, but when you select it, it is going to prompt you to go to the Epson support. Epson's kind of like, hey, we can do a little bit more before we jump right into a power clean. But we know that this is actually what we need to do. So select the home screen, and then you are going to power off your printer. These are the same exact instructions Epson support would give you. I'm just kind of bypassing that entire search. At this point, once this is off, select both the power button and the information button and hold them down for about 3 to 5 seconds. Nothing is going to happen, and then out of nowhere, the screen is going to pop up and it's going to ask you, are you sure you would like to run a power clean? You need to select yes. Once again, we need to be a bit patient here. This cleaning will take about 10 minutes, and if you thought the head cleaning was loud, this one is quite a bit louder. But it's forcing a lot of ink through your lines all at once to truly move the debris and break up those clogs. At the end of these cleanings, you should see that your nozzle check is running consistent. There are no clogs, everything is bold, and you are on track to print beautiful designs. Sorry, I didn't want to scare you there with the power clean, but I wanted to make it extremely clear that that is not something that we should be doing a lot. I have creators telling me that they do this like once or twice a week, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. 1, that is super hard on your printer, and 2, you are wasting so much ink. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about your print head alignment. Your print head is that little piece on the inside that moves back and forth. It actually prints out your image onto the paper. Now, when you move or don't use this enough or even get a paper jam, this can get a little offset and then it blurs everything together. It can cause paper jams and just a lot of issues that we do not want. This is something that I personally do at least once a week because who knows? I may knock around my stand, something may be sat on, it's just preventative. And this is one of those things that is truly going to make a difference on how long your printer lasts. For the print head alignment, you are once again going to be printing, so instead of wasting a bunch of copy paper, I will just reuse the prints from the nozzle check. Once this is ready, you will go back into the maintenance screen and select Print Head Alignment. You will notice that there is a vertical and a horizontal alignment. It truly does not matter which one you start with first, but today I will start with the vertical alignment. This isn't going to take much time to print, and keep in mind that these are not high quality print settings, so you aren't going to have a lot of pigmentation, and that is totally fine. When your paper comes out, you will notice there are a bunch of boxes, and on the left-hand side, there are some numbers 1 through 6. Of course, under each box, there are also numbers. I recommend going down the list and circling which number is most saturated, has the least amount of lines, and is not off-centered. Oftentimes, these are not all going to be the same number, which is totally fine and why we are doing the alignment in the first place. Now it is time to finish the alignment. On screen, you will select OK. Then it will prompt you to insert your number. On the top right-hand corner, there is a small number. That will coincide with the row number on your paper. The box you have circled will be the number that you input into the screen. You will notice oftentimes they may be the same exact numbers as your previous alignment, and that is totally okay. Just continue through and select OK. Then once you are finished, you will select OK and move over to our horizontal alignment. I do recommend doing both, not one over the other. Your horizontal alignment is going to look a bit different when it comes out. And this is only number 1, so you are only going to select one of these. Now, a key thing to remember is to make sure that these are not overlapped. When I double check, I initially had number 3 circled, but then I looked at it a bit closer and decided I think it's number 4. The next process is resetting your ink levels. Now, this is something that should only ever be done if you actually filled up your ink tanks. If not, this is going to be very misleading and tell you that something is low when it actually isn't, or vice versa. Now, a couple key things to note. You should never let your ink levels get below 1/4 of a tank. This is going to cause huge issues. And I will say I'm not going to show you this maintenance task because next week we are doing a full tutorial on how to fill up your ink tanks, where you can get ink, and the entire process. So make sure that you stay tuned, you're subscribed, because that will be out next week. And there is a lot to cover with that. It's not hard, but there are some key steps to make sure that you are getting the highest quality saturation and pigmentation possible. So let's move over to our last step. One of the easiest steps is your paper guide cleanse. This basically makes sure that there is no ink on the rollers on the inside. Sometimes if you are printing very high quality ink, the ink saturation gets trapped on those and then causes little wheel marks on the side, which if you don't cut those off will translate onto your projects. This is super easy and I will just show you the quick process. If you are using high quality print settings, which you should be for sublimation, then this is actually going to be your best friend. Sometimes we get wheel marks and this is exactly how you are going to fix them. Now, it does prompt you to put in a cleaning sheet. I'll be transparent. I have never once in the last 5 years used a cleaning sheet. I use copy paper or sublimation paper and it works perfectly fine. You'll know this process is complete when your paper comes out with no smudging. Okay, I know it feels a bit overwhelming. I was a beginner once too, remember that. But you and I, we've got this covered. So a few things just to recap. Number 1, it takes 5 to 10 minutes, just one time a week, to do your routine maintenance. This is going to cover any of those long-term issues that you may have, and you can get a printer that lasts just as long as I do. Second, I have all of the resources listed down below. That digital download's down there covering everything that you need, plus a little checklist so that you know exactly what you should be running each week and when the as-neededs were done last. That way you can keep everything organized. I know organization is very easy for me. All of this is listed down below for free. The last thing I would like to say is thank you so much for watching my tutorials. Without you, I would not be here. I am a sublimation coach and sometimes I cover DTF prints. But as a sublimation beginner, I had no hope. I thought there was no way in heck I was going to figure this out, and look at me now. I am so passionate about helping others on this journey because I know there are so many questions and it feels like we're a little bit lost at sea. So make sure that you are subscribed, turn on that notification bell, and in the meantime, before our next post on Tuesday, check out my tutorials down below. I think you'll have a lot of fun. Anyways, we'll chat soon.